tractor driver. Liz Webster is a farmer in Wiltshire and chairs Save British Food. Were you there yesterday, Liz Webster? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. No, I wasn't invited.
Why were you not there? If you run something called Save British Food, and by the way, do you mind if I ask, what do you farm?
We've got beef and arable.
OK, so you're a beef and arable farmer in Wiltshire, you chair Save British Food, but you weren't on the list. I find that rather surprising.
Yeah, and, I work with Sean Rickard, who's the ex-chief economist of the NFU, and we are able to be much more outspoken than the NFU and give facts and truth. But, no, we weren't invited. And, yes, it definitely was a PR stunt.
You're sitting on a hay bale in the garden of number 10. I hope you have been there. It's a very large garden, by the way. You're sitting on a hay bale opposite Rishi Sunak in the garden of number 10. What would you say to him, Liz?
Well, I'd say, look here, Rishi, you were Chancellor when we went into COVID and we were still in transition. And any sensible chancellor at that point would have worked out that COVID was going to give us a supply shock, which is inflationary. And so why on earth didn't you decide to stay in transition so that we didn't go into another shock? And then when Ukraine war happened, we should have had a COBRA meeting then, because as we knew with the vaccines, after COVID struck, that there was going to be problems with food and food production and food supply. And so yesterday's meeting should have been a COBRA meeting that happened, well, years ago, and it should have been continuing thus far. And the problems that we have now are really still in infancy. There's a lot worse to come yet, a lot worse to come. OK, Mystic Liz, what do you see? What do you see around the corner? Well, food production in Britain is collapsing at a rate of knots. And
what do you mean? You mean the price you get for your beef? Is that what it is? What do you mean by that?
No, we're all producing less food. I mean, we're being incentivised to do that, Nick. I mean, if you're not paying subsidies, food subsidies, if you're paying farmers money to go into environmental schemes, they're going to take that at the moment because the risks are so great in producing food. If you're paying, we've been paying 30% inflation on input costs. And if you don't know what you're getting on when that product suddenly gets on the supermarket shelves, then, you're not going to take that risk. So if they're offering you a scheme for 5 years to grow flowers, then you're going to choose to do that, or you're going to get out of it. And so many dairy farmers, and as you've seen, egg farmers and many pig farmers have already come out of it. I spoke to a cucumber grower yesterday who is really in the most terrible situation. There is no help for them. It's just all hot air. And ultimately, it's all very well saying, oh, well, you farmers have had it good for too long. This is your food, If you eat, you are in agriculture. And if we're not feeding you, then who's going to feed you? And come this autumn, they're bringing in these import checks for EU imports, and that is only going to inflate prices more and make food more scarce. So my question to Rishi Sunak and the rest of them, I saw George Eustace last week, actually, and asked him this question: who is going to feed the British people? Where is the food going to come from? Because ultimately, until now, until recently, most of the food on British plates has been demonstrably British. And that is shrinking at a time when global food production is also shrinking.
I wish you'd been on that hay bale opposite the Prime Minister. Liz Webster, thank you for your candour of your views. You are a farmer, arable and beef farmer in Wiltshire, and you chair Save British Food.